Okay. All right. Welcome to our New York Giants Preservation Society meeting for Thursday. It is August 18th. Tonight we have Tom Alesia, who's going to be speaking about his brand new book called Beauty at Short. Before we get to that, let's just give you some information of what's going on. Everybody should have received the newsletter. I send that out 2-3 times a year with information in there, and you have an updated list of events we're going to be having. I scheduled a couple more. We are good from here until Thanksgiving. So the only 2 weeks we don't, there's a week off in October, and there'll be Thanksgiving. And then the next 2 weeks, I did not schedule anything because of my daughter, giving birth. So I would assume that either next Thursday or the following Thursday, I will have added somebody to speak. So I will, of course, keep you informed. The schedule, we have Tom today. In 2 weeks, we have Steve Hermanos, who's going to be talking about a new book he wrote called Going, Going, Gone. It's a novel about giant players, earthquake happening in San Francisco, and they wake up in New York at the Polo Grounds. So should be a fun evening. David Krell will be speaking on 9/15 about Willie Mays' return to New York and facing the Giants and the whole how he got traded to New York. Hindi will definitely be on there speaking about her husband that night.
Absolutely.
Thursday, September 22nd, Lou Friedman was originally going to speak about Juan Marichal. We are going to push that back till January. Lou has a new book about Johnny Mize, who had a great career with the Giants. So he's going to be speaking about Johnny Mize. Then we have Lou Hernandez coming back, speaking of Bill Terry. Dan Levitt, who spoke a couple of years ago about the book he was writing about cheating in baseball. He'll be on board on October 6th. I scheduled that on purpose because the Thompson home run was 3 days earlier. And of course, people think that he might have been aided. So it'll be good. Jeff Cohen is holding up that book, Intentional Book. Thanks, Jeff. Rod Garrett on 10/13. Bill Lamb did the Giant ownership groups in New York. And Rob is going to be doing the San Francisco ownership group from 58 until the present day. J.A. Paterchak is going to be speaking about Don Mueller. So that should be a good topic. Pat Gallagher will be talking about selling Candlestick Park, not selling it to other people, but selling it to the Giant fans. So they would come out during the 70s and 80s, and Norm could attest to that. So, and then I added a few more in November. David King wrote about Ross Young's, one of the greatest Giants in the real early days, and a Hall of Famer. And Armand Peterson will be talking about West. So that should all be great meetings, and I'm sure tonight is fabulous. I spoke to Tom just a couple of weeks, maybe 10 days ago, and he agreed to come on tonight, which is great. He had sent me his book, Beauty at Short, and the book is about Dave Bancroft, who was one of the $1 million infielders and was involved in many of the great events that happened at the beginning with baseball. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone and screen over to Tom. Tom, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the New York Giants Preservation Society.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. You're all muted, but I can see the hands. I work at a middle school, so I'm well aware of silent applause like that. It's very nice. It's always nice to see when students did that. This is a thrill. I mean, 10 years ago, my wife, my son, and I were in a Northern Wisconsin along Lake Superior. Northern Wisconsin along Lake Superior is about as isolated as you can get without going into northern North Dakota. The closest city to where we were staying, about 30 miles away, was Superior, Wisconsin. We looked 10 years ago at, well, what's in Superior, Wisconsin? A little line was at the bottom of a number of other things, and it said Baseball Hall of Famer Dave Bancroft is buried here. Now that caught my curiosity right away because Superior, Wisconsin is hockey territory. Superior, Wisconsin is where football players come from. Superior, Wisconsin is where you get your Olympic curlers. There's not too many baseball players from Superior. The fact that a Baseball Hall of Famer was from there and buried there and lived most of his life there was amazing. We went to the cemetery, could barely find it. Luckily, we found it. It was his stone, and it's not really a stone. It's inside the ground. It's not standing up. It's about 2 feet off a gravel road. He is next to his wife. It just says his name, birth date, date he died, and husband. That's it. Nothing else. The entire city has nothing to indicate that a Baseball Hall of Famer lived among them during the time from 1909 until his death in 1972. He married in 1909 to somebody from Superior, and he did stay there. For people, because this is, I'm guessing, a largely maybe an East Coast crowd, just a little summary of what Superior, where Superior, Wisconsin is, or what Superior, Wisconsin is all of you know one thing about Superior, Wisconsin, and that is the song "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald" by Gordon Lightfoot. I'm not going to sing it right now, but that ship did leave 3 years after Dave Bancroft died, and that is the ship in the hit song that sank. Other than that, Superior does not have too many historical landmarks. What has happened since then, after that 10 years, was piqued my curiosity. And for those first few years, it was microfilm, and it was very monotonous. This was a very difficult process. You got information very slowly. It changed then 4 years later. 4 years ago, I was able to look at several sites: newspaperarchives.com, newspapers.com, newslibrary.com. I spent 30 years in newspaper journalism, actually as an arts and entertainment writer. So I had interviewed pretty much everybody in the entertainment field. I had done an occasional sports story, but more importantly, I think I knew when I had something that had to be told that had not been told before. And so over the course of 4 years, I now work in a middle school and reading and writing teacher. And I realized that I was waking up every morning after doing research on Dave Bancroft. And when I say research, it wasn't just the city he was in. I cast the net over the entire country. That required so many hours, I don't even want to explain it because it's a lot, quite a lot. I would then copy an article when I found something that I thought was very interesting. I knew then I had a book because I was staying up until as late as 5:30 in the morning researching Dave Bancroft, going through hundreds, tens of thousands of articles at least, and finding the best ones, the best stories, something that wasn't there. And I found myself every morning so excited to get to tell my wife a new Bancroft story. And it happened time after time after time. And that's when I realized to myself, I definitely have a book, and this guy has an incredible story. I'm going to do this in a variety or a wide way. I'm going to start out a little. I'm going to try to whip through some of the things where he was born and how he came to be a Major League Baseball player, because when I put in the subtitle most unlikely Hall of Famer, he was almost the most unlikely big league player. The presentation will end with my defense of his Hall of Fame, but in particular, I want to abolish the myth that he was simply a frisch pal. And then even if there's 30 seconds or a minute, I would like to tell a story from 44 years ago when I was 12 years old, and former New York Giant and 1927 National League Most Valuable Player Bob O'Farrell made me cry. That's a true story. So hang on. Even if the Bancroft stuff doesn't get you, I guarantee you the Bob O'Farrell story making me cry when I was 12 years old will. Bancroft grew up or was born in Sioux City, Iowa. Sioux City, Iowa is in the upper northwestern corner of Iowa. His dad played amateur baseball. He began to really connect in as a 12-year-old. You see a picture of him with the city championship. Let's step forward then. As a 14, 15, and 16-year-old, he played on a team, a semi-pro team called Bobby Black's Knights. Bobby Black was the owner of the team. He was the only teenager on the team. And one of the things I found out, and I still find things about Bancroft, because it is amazing how he crosses with just about every single person, certainly from the dead ball era and even beyond that. But that team played the Boston Bloomers being the iconic all-women's team, or mostly women's team, that toured at that time. And it appears, as best I can tell from just some recent stuff that I had seen, that Smokey Joe Wood was one of the men on the Boston Bloomers team that played against Bancroft's semi-pro team in September of 1906. Smokey Joe Wood describes that he was a member of the Bloomers right at that time, and right at that time was one of 4 stops that the team had in Sioux City, Iowa. He did play high school baseball his sophomore and junior year, but before his senior year, he signed with the Waterloo, Iowa Lulus, my absolutely favorite minor league baseball team name. There were more than 300 minor league baseball teams at that time. This is 1909. He gets there. He plays for 2 weeks. He works in pretty well. The manager was a hothead who had hugely successful years the previous 4 years. In that time, Bancroft is still 17 years old. He turned 18 right about that time. And he made an error in one game, and then he made a significant error in another. It was a deep ground ball, and he wasn't sure whether to try to catch the guy at second on a force or whether to throw it to first. He hung on to the ball. Manager was so furious, Bancroft was cut. He didn't have a place to go. He ends up 500 miles north in Duluth, Minnesota. Of course, at that time, players were allowed tryouts, actually playing in games. In Duluth, Minnesota, he played at least two series with the Duluth White Sox, again, in the lowest level of minor leagues at that time. He played well, but Duluth was ready. Duluth was all set. And fortunately, the story doesn't end there, because the manager of the Superior Blues, which was the team in the same league, the Minnesota-Wisconsin minor league baseball league, was at one of the games, and I'm guessing it's the game that Bancroft was exceptional in. He was 2-13. His team was 2-13. He asked Bancroft to join up, and Bancroft then spent the next 3 seasons in Superior, Wisconsin, again at the lowest level of baseball. He then gets a chance in the PCL with the Portland Beavers, 1913. Huge break for him because no one else had any interest. Portland Beavers cast, again, a pretty wide net in terms of finding players, and they found one. They needed a shortstop. Ironically, that previous shortstop was Roger Peckinpah, who will eventually be captain of the Yankees in 3 of the World Series against the New York Giants, of which Bancroft was the captain of the New York Giants. They go to he goes to Portland, and he's a great fielder. Everybody can acknowledge that, but he can't hit. And a couple months into the season, he literally had his bags packed, was walking to the train station to head back home to the Midwest and give up baseball. He was stopped by 2 players, including one, raw meat Bill Rogers. The other is Art Kruger, I believe it was, or I may be getting that wrong. There's one other player. The important part of it is they spun him around. They said, come on back. They worked with him. They talked about it, extra hitting. They talked about placing the ball. They did little of everything. They also had a huge suggestion, and that was become a turnaround hitter. And of course, at that time, turnaround hitter is a switch hitter. He became a switch hitter very early on. He stuck with that throughout his career. It is his time in Portland is marked again, especially his first 2 years there, with not being able to hit. He goes in his first season with the Portland Beavers, and again, he's in the PCL, so he's pretty high up there. His second season, he was demoted. Portland decided we need a second team because apparently Portland, Oregon could not go without having a professional baseball game each day. They added a team called the Portland Colts in the Northwestern League, so 2 notches below what the Beavers were, and that's where they put Bancroft in his second season. His teammates included Harry Heilman and Carl Mays. They succeeded very well. Bancroft did just well enough to where the Portland Beavers brought him back in 1914. This was now entering his 6th year in the minor leagues. He had a very good season. He was finally able to start hitting. Again, it's the dead ball era, but still his average had went up there. Nobody ever questioned his fielding. The Philadelphia Phillies sent a scout to sign a man named Roy Corhan from the PCL. Philadelphia needed a shortstop after the season, at the end of that season. And the details are a little sketchy, but there's no doubt that Corhan, far more than Bancroft, was leaning towards the Federal League at that time. To avoid that, Philadelphia chose Dave Bancroft. Dave Bancroft arrives in spring training with the Philadelphia Phillies in 1915. Pat Moran looks at him for the first time and says he looks more like a jockey than he does a baseball player. Soon after, though, within 2 weeks, he realized what he had. And in retrospect, Bancroft calls Moran his first real coach, even though he had been with a number of people who had played professional baseball. In 1915, the Philadelphia Phillies, when the season started, there is a headline from a newspaper that says, "Gloom lurks for Quaker City team." And they meant the Phillies weren't going to do anything. Obviously, 1915, they went to the World Series. They won 1 game. Bancroft had a key hit. He almost hit 300 in the World Series. They lost 4-1 to the Boston Red Sox. At that time, with a very, very young Babe Ruth, who in that series batted one time and grounded out. Throughout his time then, before he joined the New York Giants, he spent about 5.5 years with the Phillies. He was very successful with the Phillies, and after that World Series victory, he then becomes the Phillies were second place in 1916. They were second place in 1917. They were close. They had a chance, another shot to do it, and just had fallen short. But during that time, one of the things, and here's where it's almost as if it was inevitable that the Polo Grounds and the New York Giants would play a role in Bancroft's life. And this goes all the way back, and in fact, it's almost eerie. The player that he was chosen over in order to become a Philadelphia Philly, Roy Corhan, when his minor league team, when Roy Corhan's team, which was the Pueblo Indians, came into Sioux City, Iowa to play the Sioux City minor league team at that time, Roy was the second baseman. They needed a shortstop at that time. They took 17-year-old Dave Bancroft, who lived there, and they were the combination in 1908 that was there. 6 years later, then he gets drafted over Corhan by the Phillies, or signed by the Phillies quicker. The remarkable thing about that, though, is that at that time, you see an article in one newspaper that has John McGraw touting how renovations to the Polo Grounds in 1908 will help them win the pennant, and how important that will be. And that was literally right next to the box score of the game where Dave Bancroft made his initial minor league appearance. And the creepiness of that is that he does not win that World Series title again until 1921, 13 years later, when Dave Bancroft is there. As a Philly, the Polo Grounds, again, is a significant part of him. And last night, 2 nights ago, I'm sorry, I was at Dave Marinis has very deep Madison roots. He is the author of the new biography on Jim Thorpe. This is extraordinary. I mean, just the parts I've read. And David Marinis, I hate to call him a friend, we're at least acquaintances. And it has some extraordinary stuff about the New York Giants. But as doing a deep dive into Dave Bancroft, I just loved running across those names. And sure enough, at the Polo Grounds, there's a play. And again, remember, Bancroft's entry into the Hall of Fame is largely fielding. It's very similar in a way to Ozzie Smith. That fielding is your calling card to getting in. As a rookie, he went into center field, grabbed the ball, threw wildly to first. It should have been a hit. It was made in air. The batter was Jim Thorpe. The field was the Polo Grounds. In 1919, Bancroft slid into second base during the first Sunday game at the Polo Grounds against the New York Giants. 1919, early in the season, they had not played an official Sunday game before that. He slid into second base and broke his ankle. He did, however, return that season, and once again, back at the Polo Grounds. Keep in mind, he is a Philadelphia Philly at that time. He plays in the second to last season of that game. The Phillies lost to the New York Giants 6-1. The game ran 9 innings and is a record still. It lasted only 51 minutes. In the game, Dave Bancroft makes the last out, swinging at the first pitch, a weak grounder. Clearly, both teams wanted to be out of there very, very quickly. How does he become a New York Giant? If you read the Hall of Fame biography, they talk about contract dispute. And I thought, I think all of us know that I'm not sure that there was a player at any time who didn't have a contract dispute at least once significantly during their career with it, but often it was an annual event. He was not traded to the New York Giants because of a contract dispute. That was solved. It became June 1920. He is sought after by Pittsburgh. He is sought after by Cincinnati. They offer a lot of players. The Phillies say no. But John McGraw offers William Baker something that William Baker had already shown that he would change, and that was with Grover Alexander too, and with others, is if you offer cash, you have his ear much more. And John McGraw offered approximately $100,000 to him. William Baker took a train and an assistant who could verify that this was an agreement and bolted to New York. And that made Dave Bancroft a New York Giant. He really started to flourish there, and he had done well as a Philly. But, that $1 million infield, 3 years before, if you had said, or let's say 4 or 5, 6 years before, if you had said that Dave Bancroft would be part of something called $1 million infield on a New York professional baseball team, it's unfathomable. Even a few years before, and even with his success with the Phillies, he is not on the Phillies Wall of Fame. As much as I fight that, and boy, they fire back. Yes, they are as nasty in Philadelphia as I thought, as they have a reputation for. He's in Cooperstown, but he's not on the Phillies Wall of Fame. The 1920, while he was with the Giants, though, he fits in perfectly. And he begins, again, it lasts, we know that John McGraw died in 1934, but his friendship with John McGraw was extremely close. This was more than player-manager and the respect that he had there. This was more than when he returned to the New York Giants in 1930 to 32 as an assistant coach to John McGraw. They were very close friends. And I want to read one part from Mrs. McGraw's book, The Real McGraw, I'm sorry. And she writes that John, her husband McGraw, found intelligent off-field companionship in Dave Bancroft, whose sense of humor was keen. I think John laughed more with Banny than any other player. Dave's laughter was strident and piercing. His wife, Edna, was the best of company. And then she goes on to talk about the age that they were married, which actually is incorrect in here, and also the ages, but still a close tie to Dave Bancroft. In 1973, I want to indicate how much John McGraw meant to him. This is one of the last long interviews that Dave Bancroft did. He's 73 years old, living in a very cold place. It's a place where you go for summers in Superior, Wisconsin. And at 73, he said he still dreamed at night about playing for the Giants. When I wake from those dreams, Bancroft said, I have to keep telling myself that McGraw has been dead for years. This is almost exactly 40 years after John McGraw died. If you want to have somebody who has an impact on your life, the way you act, the way you coach, John McGraw's influence is all over Dave Bancroft. In 1921, and just before he joined the New York Giants, and this is an important part of it, Dave Bancroft was married to Edna Bancroft, Edna Geisert, for more than 60 years. And again, that's why he was in Superior. She is the most wonderful, supportive wife that he could have possibly had, because he bounced around a lot. Baseball, as we know, even for the best of them, is a difficult sport. She supported it through him. They love kids, and yet are always referred to as childless. That is not true. 5 months before he became a New York Giant in 1920, Edna Bancroft gave birth to a baby girl, Mary Jane Bancroft. She lived 16 days and died. Dave is quoted in a number of newspapers during those 16 days as to how thrilled he is, how happy he is to have the daughter. There's a number of papers that quote him at that. There is not one word about the daughter's death in any newspaper. And again, that's whether it's his hometown, that's in New York, that's in Philadelphia, where he was at that time. She is buried outside of Philadelphia, incidentally, because he was there. It is a traumatic thing, because this was a couple that throughout their lives were absolutely wonderful with kids. And one of the things when you write a biography of an old-time baseball player is you often have that same stone-faced photo. And one of the things about Bancroft, aside from, if you can see kind of slightly over here, I have where he's smiling, but he also, there's a number of photos where he's playing with kids. One of the sports writers, Frank Graham, let his daughter, who was 5, stay with, who she ended up calling Uncle Dave and Aunt Edna, and talked about how much fun she had in their New York apartment when she was in New York. And when they needed a babysitter, actually it was Frank Graham's wife who was pregnant, they turned to the Bancrofts and had him and Edna take care of their daughter. And she spoke fondly of it many decades later. 1921, Bancroft did do the 7-game tour with the Giants in Cuba. Of course, Babe Ruth was with that team. In January 1921, it also began a long friendship with Babe Ruth. In January 1921, Dave and Edna were in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Hot Springs, Arkansas was also where Babe Ruth, of course, spent many times preparing. Thereupon becomes where Dave Bancroft is involved. Dave Bancroft becomes the photographer of what become the most, and this is going to sound scary, the most provocative photos of Babe Ruth that are known to exist. And all 3 are in my book. I know that this is hard to see. You'll all have to buy the book. But no, here's, if at the top there, it is Edna Bancroft, Dave's wife, and Helen Ruth, Babe's wife, in 1921. They are holding a stuffed bear over Babe's crotch. Babe is head is sticking through a ballerina's cutout wood thing. It gets stranger. In the bottom one, there is a photo of a carousel where it is Babe is looming in the back. Edna's Bancroft's hand is firmly on Helen Ruth's breast. The photographer, and he's not known for his great photography, is Dave Bancroft through that time. One of the photos that I keep, and I'm sorry that it's not larger, it's one of the Bancroft pieces that I keep in my house that I show, and it is when Ruth did a vaudeville show in Duluth, Minnesota, which is across the river from Superior, 1926 November, and he had breakfast that morning with Dave, and Ruth just has a Ruthian jacket on, and by that I mean you can't have had a bigger fur coat for the winter of that time in November in 1926. He definitely lived up to it. Bancroft's nickname is Beauty. And again, the Hall of Fame biography has a very large pull quote that says that name started when he was a minor leaguer in Portland. And you guys know about the PCL. The PCL was almost like a second big leagues. I mean, and Portland papers covered that extremely well. Every major newspaper along the West Coast covered their PCL team and the PCL league very closely. I have gone through tens of thousands of articles, have never found a mention of the nickname Beauty until he arrived in New York at the Polo Grounds, and fans hearing him say the word Butte when he's at bat, a good pitch that is thrown, or he's in the field at shortstop, makes a good play, or somebody else makes a good play. He would often use that. The first published mention of that is in June 1920, the minute he had been a few weeks with the New York Giants at that time. When I talk about going in a deep dive, this is one, and yes, this is duct tape. This is just one of 5 folders of articles that I thought were important in order to get to Dave's story and to tell some of those, well, where did this thing come from, and how did he meet this person, and what happened in this particular game. Dave has a very good 1920 with the New York Giants. He fits in right away. His 6th game, he goes 6 for 6, all singles, still a record in a 9-inning game. In 1921, he is named captain of the team. They, of course, play in the famous 8-game World Series, every game at the Polo Grounds, Yankee Stadium being built at that time. Bancroft scored the only run in the 1-0 victory in Game 8. He broke as soon as that ball went towards Roger Peckinpah. The ball went through Roger's legs, and Bancroft scored, and that was it for scoring at that time. 1922, the $1 million infield comes in and really lives up to their name. And here is where, because when Bancroft is mentioned, and there are other players far more, but he'll be on that list of, Google who doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, you're going to find 2-3 articles out of 10 that put Dave Bancroft up there. And they'll also immediately refer to him as a fresh pal. There is an actual quote in there. Actually, it was a sports writer's observation. Bancroft and Frisch were great teammates. They were never good friends. That doesn't mean that they were antagonistic against each other at all. But no, it's very clear, and their backgrounds would give an indication as to why. One, very much a country person, the country boy, and in Frisch's case, he's the Fordham Flash. They worked well together on the field. Off the field, they were not very close friends, and in fact, did not correspond, as best I can tell, very much after that. 1921 is very important, and this is why when you become famous in New York, and this is what I realized, wow, did it overwhelm me, and why did Dave Bancroft become a name and not a handful of others? When you're winning World Series in 1921 and 1922 and playing in the World Series in 1923 in New York against New York, that media is an avalanche across the country and even to a small degree internationally. When Dave Bancroft arrived on November 3rd, 1921, after winning the World Series with the New York Giants, to his surprise, more than 10,000 people arrived in a city that probably had a population of half that. The photo I'm holding up is just a mob scene of him, and in the middle, though, you can see a car, and that's his car trying to get to a hotel that is about a half mile from the train station. When he got off the train, He was immediately hoisted on their shoulders and was carried several blocks along there. Superior, Wisconsin at 1:30 on that afternoon on that day closed schools, closed factories, closed businesses, and pretty much everybody went to the train station to celebrate Dave Bancroft. The next day there was a banquet in his honor, and it's one of my favorite Bancroft pieces that I do own. And I'm going to explain why I don't have that here with me later. It's actually part of, in its second museum exhibit right now in Superior, Wisconsin. Previously, we had it in Sioux City, Iowa. The program row for that banquet includes, it's very much a meat and potatoes menu, which would very Superior-like. But they put little nicknames here, and they have fruit salad, and they put descriptions underneath every single item of the 7 items that were served at that. And the fruit salad is described as crushed like the New York Yankees. So I love that. They sing to him, "Hail the Conquering Hero." Did he have a great World Series? You know, yeah, okay, you can go quickly to the numbers, and he hits 154, although there were a couple key hits in that series where he came through. He also did some good fielding in that series. They are, at that time, he still, you know, becomes in Superior that kind of and across the country, a renown for his play at shortstop, given the credit frequently referred to as Honus Wagner, compared favorably with Honus Wagner, especially in his early days. The Giants, he does very well with. His hitting during the season is excellent, and it continues. What happens then? 1922 succeeds again. They win the World Series. 1923, they make it to the World Series. He doesn't hit well at all in that series. And the irony of it is that as he was about to leave New York, he was in his apartment, New York apartment. He looked outside, and 4 thieves were each taking one of the tires off his car. He ran down there and rounded up 3 of them. This is after the 1923 World Series, when he literally was able to corral 3 people, and then police had come right at that time. So he got 3 of the 4. And the New York papers, instead of that story, said that Dave Bancroft hits 750 when he's trying to get thieves or criminals. But in the World Series, you know, he barely hit 100. And that went, of course, when things are printed in New York, they are printed in Boise, Idaho. They are printed in the Los Angeles Times. They are printed in the Superior Telegram in Superior, Wisconsin. It's spread across the way. So even a moment of somewhat success afterwards and an odd experience after, and he was very discouraged by that. Now becomes the time where the 1923 season is over. During the 1923 season, he is injured. He is replaced by a 19-year-old shortstop, Travis Jackson. And Travis Jackson played well, although he was not the fielder that Bancroft was. Bancroft, and this is one of the wonderful things about Bancroft, is you see it 2 times in his New York Giants history. One is he was very supportive of Travis Jackson, and you can hear that in Travis's Hall of Fame audio interview from, I believe it was the early 80s or late 70s. even in that interview, as an elderly man, he remembered Bancroft's support at that time for him when he was struggling at short. Also, when Bill Terry became the manager of the New York Giants in 1932, replacing John McGraw, they were not successful. That was a sub-500 team. Bancroft was, by his choice, decided not to stay on as an assistant with Bill Terry, but he backed Bill Terry vocally in a number of articles supporting Bill Terry, saying how difficult it is to be a player manager, something Bancroft knew very much from personal experience. And he backed Bill Terry. That's going to become very important later when the Veterans Committee votes in 1971 on that. 1924, why then is he departed? Is it just because of McGraw wants Travis Jackson in the New York Giants lineup? That's one of the reasons. Number two, they were close enough friends, and at that time, Dave Bancroft wanted to be a player manager. That had such esteem at that time. Rogers Hornsby, and you guys know the list, it goes on. A number of stars. You also were paid considerably more. You got two salaries. You were a manager, you were a player. John McGraw knew this. He wanted to help Dave achieve that goal, and the Boston Braves were there, and at that time, not only were they owned by the judge, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting Judge Fuchs, and their president was Christy Mathewson. It's not the best team, but as a player manager, they thought that they could succeed. McGraw did not leave him hanging. In fact, the articles at that time said that McGraw got the raw end of the deal, and that he shouldn't have sent Bancroft away, and that he didn't get very much in return for it. At the same time, Bancroft does regret in a rare interview in the 1960s where he talked about it, he does say that he regretted becoming a player manager and that he wished he had stuck with the New York Giants at that time. That's hindsight because he knew it. At the same time, like everything he did, there is an absolute relentlessness, and he went into becoming a player manager very much as a hope to rekindle the miracle Braves of the 1914s. I'm going to push ahead then to, I realize that you guys prefer this shorter. 1930, he coached 1930, 1931. He managed a lot in the for the New York Giants and for Bill Terry. John McGraw stepped away a number of times, whether it was legitimately for health or not, but Dave Bancroft really should have been the interim coach at that manager of that team, and probably should have gotten the wins that the Giants had. And they were quite successful under Bancroft. Why then did they choose Bill Terry? I think you guys know that Bancroft had way too close of ties to McGraw, and Bill Terry was right there. Bill Terry went into that office expecting to be told that he was traded, and instead walked out of there and was named the manager of the team. John McGraw's death in 1934, John McGraw continued to stay in touch with Bancroft. Bancroft became manager of the Minneapolis minor league team for one season. And after that season, he constantly kept in touch with Bancroft. And Bancroft said that dozens of times that he had contacted him, that McGraw was close to coming in on a deal with a team and he would make Bancroft manager. When John McGraw died, Dave Bancroft lost his biggest champion in terms of front office power to get him to become a manager. He never was a manager again, although he did coach in the minor leagues for a number of years. He did not manage again until he is the Hall of Famer who has managed in the Women's Professional Baseball League. Yes, the one made famous in a league of their own. He was manager first of the Chicago team, 2 years with the South Bend team, and then 1 year with the Battle Creek team. Was he the Tom Hanks character? No. Dave Bancroft was not a heavy drinker. I don't think Dave Bancroft would have minded if there was crying in the dugout, you know. The players loved him in South Bend. They called him Pops. He was 60 years old at the time. They had a Dave Bancroft night. And I'm going to push ahead right now to the Hall of Fame and what happened then in 1971. Dave Bancroft went to Cooperstown in 1965, and he went in and to the Baseball Hall of Fame like you and me. He paid admission to get in. In 1968, Frankie Frisch had joined the Veterans Committee. Dave Bancroft was not picked. In 1969, some suspect players were put in there. Dave Bancroft was not one of them. In 1970, that might have been the Jesse Haynes year. Clearly a teammate of Frisch's who was a friend was in the Hall of Fame. Bancroft was not. By 1971, Dave Bancroft was 80 years old. On January 31st, on a Sunday, he was eating chicken dinner with his wife in their very modest Superior home. The phone rang. It was a Milwaukee reporter. And the Milwaukee reporter said, "You're in the Baseball Hall of Fame." And Dave Bancroft could only just choke out, "That's the nicest thing I've ever heard." Edna said it should have happened sooner. And I thought, that's a great supportive wife who says that. He did not live. He did not go to Cooperstown because of illness to be inducted, which is too bad because that is the group that included Satchel Paige. Now again, if Frisch wasn't the fist down saying Dave Bancroft is in, what did happen in that committee? Well, you need to look at the 12 people who were in there. And two key people were not in it, but were added in 1971. In 1971, they added, or substituting for two other players who were not Bancroft favorites. But the two new people on that 12-person committee that year in 1971, Wade Hoyt and Bill Terry, both of whom would know it. Also on there was Charlie Gehringer, Joe Cronin. Joe Cronin was in the game when Dave Bancroft got smacked by former New York Giant Earl Oil Smith during a game, knocked him out cold. They had a grudge from the Boston Braves days. The other people who were there were 3 executives with the Hall of Fame and 4 sports writers. One of the sports writers, Dan Daniel, New York Tribune, I believe, and a close friend of Bancroft's from the early 20s through the 1960s. And clearly an outspoken one. And you can also see articles from those 4 sports writers that defend Bancroft's admission into that group because, well, they're printed. They come out and defend him. Dan Daniel, of course, is the main one. Those were players who remembered him. The executives at the time who were with the Hall of Fame and with the National and American League were also people who did remember the 1920s and the players in that time. And I'm not going to, and I have in other Zooms with other people, where it becomes, well, he's in, but so-and-so isn't in. And yes, if you look at that, this is I own 6 of the baseball bats of the 500 that were released during the induction ceremony. Satchel Paige, of course, being the significant one, and he gave a magnificent speech. As much as I love Rube Marquardt, and he's one of the wonderful people in The Glory of Their Times. I reread it just a few weeks ago. Does he deserve to be in there? I'm not so sure. You know, again, we could go all day talking about that. The significance of this bat and what then became of Dave Bancroft after that, and what becomes of a Hall of Famer. The book was published 5 months ago. We were told by a very tiny publisher, Grissom Press. We were told by a very prominent editor who in the sports book world that a story about an old timer, especially one obscure, even though he's a Hall of Famer, basically will be dead on arrival. But just like Dave Bancroft, the book has caught on amazingly. We are stunned. I am the author of a book of 30 years of interviews with country stars, and we had success at Christmas time, and we're arrogant and thinking everything, oh my gosh, just wait until somebody poses with it. And then it's going to, minute Christmas ended and the holiday season ended, sales dropped off the chart. For 5 months, Dave Bancroft, the ebook, has been in the top 10 among baseball history, baseball biographies. The print version has sold way beyond our expectations, tremendously beyond our expectations. I was able to bring it to Sioux City, Iowa, and that is where, for the first time, he was given using my memorabilia of Dave Bancroft, which I collected over several years. We had a museum exhibit. I did a presentation there. And one of the happiest times of this whole wonderful journey of being with Dave Bancroft was in the minor league stadium of the Sioux City Explorers, what is now a 3-foot high concrete with a plaque of Dave Bancroft. The city had nothing, even though he lived there from birth until age 18 and returned every year. Over my left shoulder here is the free t-shirts that they gave out that night. They quick sent me an email saying, we'll put his number on the back. And I quickly sent an email back saying that Dave Bancroft never had a number. So they used 71, the year he was inducted into that. These are my Bancrofts, and I know they're very hard to see, and I'm sorry for the glare. Trust me on this. Because of the exhibit, which is now moved on to Superior, Wisconsin, which also had no idea. There is not one thing that mentions, other than a quick quip on the internet about him being buried there, but there is nothing there. These are my 3 life-size Bancrofts. They're 6 feet tall each, 3 inches taller than Dave himself. When I first started promoting this book in 2 cities, I was in the middle of absolutely nowhere, Iowa. I was pulled over for driving 80 in a 65-mile-per-hour zone. In my back seat are 3 life-sized Dave Bancrofts, clearly visible to the state trooper who pulled me over and said, "What's that?" And I said, "Do you have about 2 hours? Because I can tell you everything as to why." What it was I was on my way to bringing several buckets, including the 3 life-size Dave Bancrofts, to the Sioux City Public Library. The fact that they have a permanent marker for him now there is endearing for me. Today's Zoom session was supposed to be from the Douglas County Museum in Superior, where the second museum exhibit exclusively on Dave Bancroft, which has countless things. And again, these are just, I touched on, I talked too long, but there are many, many more stories about Bancroft, and very many more discussing some of the outstanding things that he did on the field and off the field. And that exhibit continues then through October 8th. Wow, if you are anywhere near northern Wisconsin or northern Minnesota, that is the place. And like I said, I had hoped to be there, but actually I am going to Superior. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, so I'm about 6 hours south of Superior. And I am going there next Friday for the third meeting with City of Superior officials. Everything is named in every park in that city, but there's still, except one field. And if that doesn't become Dave Bancroft Field, there will be, in all likelihood, they've given every indication that there will be a marker in Superior on their baseball complex, which has 5 fields. Again, thank you for listening to Journey. I really apologize for probably speaking over. I'm trying to look over at the clock right now, and I realize I probably went over by about 10 minutes. But I hope you felt even an ounce of the joy that I felt over certainly the last 4 or 5 years of doing a deep dive into Dave Bancroft. He was a very unique person. And if I was in Superior, doing this from Superior right now, I would be going through the museum and pointing out to you very specific objects from his career and some of the things that he had done, and may have done this a little differently. But at the same time, I'm very proud of that and hope that that exhibit maybe makes its way to New York in some way. The irony is also too, if there is one thing that still remains in New York, that is Dave Bancroft, and that is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art's just their archives, in their collection. One of the photos that they have kept from old time baseball is Dave Bancroft reaching up for a ball. And I just love the fact that somebody who was so obscure now, but 100 years ago was one of the toasts of New York, has something in the Metropolitan Museum of Art's collection of him playing baseball and fielding. I think is spectacular. Gary, any questions or anything?
Yeah, that was a fabulous presentation.
Thank you very much.
So well researched. I read the book. You can read the book in a sitting. It's not a long book, but
no,
so many.
That is by choice too. I was very afraid. I'm going to guess very most of you know the 1921 World Series. I was very afraid to go. I did not want to go pitch by pitch. It's the 1921 World Series is part of the book 100 Greatest New York City Moments, sports history. And I thought, if it's in there, I certainly touch on it. But to me, one of the most amazing things is the reaction of Wade Hoyt crying in the New York Yankees dugout after the 8th and final game of that series.
What is the best way to get the book?
Best way to get the book is through Amazon. We have it in a number of bookstores, but no matter what you think about Amazon, I got to say, they deliver very fast. We were so scared at the start of this that it is priced remarkably low. The print version that I'm holding, the book lasts, it's about 184 pages total. And it is $9.39. When you add shipping and taxes, that is about as cheap as you're going to get for a biography. The ebook is $1.99, and it has been that way. Why is it so cheap? We were really scared that no one would even look at it. And what happened in March, I'm sitting in a classroom and I can tell on my computer in front of 6th graders that my personal email is filling up. And that was very unusual. And I thought something's happening. And it was during independent reading time. And I clicked on it, and someone had sent me a note saying the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, which is the major paper in Wisconsin, gave it a positive review right out of the blocks. That when people see that and you have something like that, you could then go to other places and suddenly they're interested in it. Oh, the Journal-Sentinel, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel liked it a lot.
Right.
Then you can start,
really
the
good.
wheels rolled.
Yeah, the beauty of our group is, it doesn't just start with Willie Mays until now. We love going back in time, and a lot of us never heard of him, or we heard of him, didn't know about him. We're going to open up the floor to questions. I'm going to ask you the first question.
Yes.
His nickname was Danny or Beauty.
Beauty.
Your title, Beauty at Short, is that two ways to think of it? How great a
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Oh, I had a number of titles, and people soured it. In fact,
Tom, you froze out. Tom, are you there? Well, that might be the end. I'm sure Mars, Norm, and Paul had great